AI is like a dumb employee. Okay, hear me out. So first of all, if you're AI in the future, please do not smite me on this. But the truth of it is when you're working on it, and this happened to me, this kind of epiphany. When you're working with AI, a lot of times you get to a point where you're just getting inconsistent results. You try with new chats, and it just seems like you keep on having to repeat and repeat and repeat, and it's frustrating and annoying. And you're like, why is everyone kind of spewing that this AI is the future and it's so good? Like I feel like it's overhyped and just not worth it right now. I feel like this is just a huge marketing ploy. Well, that's what I thought, and honestly, I got a little too comfortable with just manual work, and it kind of popped in my mind saying, instead of can this work, how can this work? And so this shift for me has completely changed everything. And so I'm going to give you kind of the breakdown of what I have done in this past couple hours, I guess 24 hours. It has completely kind of switched this idea for me to be able to start producing consistent results with any AI I use, and be able to actually take what has taken me, oh boy, like what has probably would have taken me 10 hours plus, and has kind of streamlined it into about, we'll say like 10 minutes or so, 10 to 15 minutes. It's absolutely insane. And this is one of the few ways I have found that's consistently worked. And it's what I found. I'm not saying that's going to 100% work for you, but I figured I might as well do it. Now, before we get into this, I want to say that if you guys are new to the channel, if you don't know who I am, my name is Brennan. I actually work at an agency. I'm the marketing lead there, and I work with about 6 to 7 clients right now. And so everything I'm kind of giving to you is this information. It's all come from that. If you are not subscribed, please subscribe and comment. Tell me if you are enjoying these videos. Right now it is 2:01 a.m. and I have to wake up in about 5 hours to go work out. So out of the way, let's get into what you actually need to know. Now, I want to be clear that this isn't going to be, I'm not going to pull up like a Miro board or anything like an AI ChatGPT and tell you, okay, you got to paste in this specific prompt and get this specific thing. No, this is kind of higher level things. And to be clear, this is going to be tactical as well. This is going to be like actual practical actions that you can take and will take. But I'm not going to say, okay, you type in this specific prompt to get it to work. So just bear with me. It'll probably make a little more sense once we're getting right into it. But the first things first is understanding that if you come from the framework of AI is evolved enough to be kind of like a dumb employee where it doesn't know everything, it doesn't know anything when you first bring it in, and you're going to have to work with it a couple different times, probably different touch points of, okay, I worked with them today, I'm going to kind of let it rest, come back and kind of work with them tomorrow consistently. If you take that approach, it's going to be solid. So this is the approach I took. I actually had about a week ago worked on some AI stuff for scripting for my clients, and I got to a point where it was good, but then Copilot started getting like some weird results, and I was like, okay, I'm just frustrated with this. So I kind of just put that in like kind of the back burner, and I was like, okay, obviously manual is the better way of doing this, and I thought it was better. But obviously there's a lot of repetitive tasks with it that I kind of just pushed aside that I thought I was better with. Well, my dad, he's actually working with Copilot specifically for his business. Well, not his business, but the company he works at. And he came to me earlier today, and he specifically said, dude, you got to check this out. And he was working with like 75 pages and of just documents. And he's like, this would have taken me forever. I would have to fill out every single thing. It's a consistent format, but I had to do 75 pages. This would have took me upon tons and tons of hours. And I'm like, okay, and and he was like, well, I put in the Copilot thanks to kind of like getting more exposure with like you and talking about AI and everything. And he's like, it finished it in like 10 minutes, and it's outputting this specific format. Obviously went a little bit back and forth, but it's consistent. And he's like, I get files like this all the time, and it's like 75 at least kind of pages of it. And he's like, saves me tons and tons and tons of hours. And everybody in the company is not using AI. They're saying, oh, you need this, that, you need a large like database, etc. So he's like, you don't. And so it got me thinking, like, okay, that's interesting. So my dad's using it. I'm like seeing all the stuff on X right now about people using it. I'm like, maybe I just didn't work with it well enough. And so I went back into it, working with it. And then these couple things I did based on what I've seen worked for others, along with a couple other things that I added myself, completely changed everything. And I can now put these files into any AI. And I'm not exaggerating here with this. I could put this into Grok. I could put this into ChatGPT. I could put this into Gemini. I could put it into whatever, Claude. And it is consistent every single time. Now, of course, some models work a little bit better in terms of the things they do, but you can expect a consistent output and a confidence score. It's going to be the same every single time. So let's get into it. I know I've been talking a lot, but I feel like sometimes the story kind of makes it a lot more well-rounded, rememberable. And I think the whole main point of telling that story is don't get comfortable with AI because it's rapidly changing. And if you're on top of it, it's going to do you wonders. It's going to save you tons of times, and it's going to feel like you just, like a light bulb kind of switched on for you, completely change everything. So let's get into it. What is the first thing? First thing was what I mentioned, kind of like the whole, this kind of summarize this first point is treat AI like a dumb employee. And this is nothing against AI. This is just a framework you have to take to understand it. And so when you come from this kind of point of view, you're like, okay, if they don't know anything, let me bring them up to speed. Let me kind of give them different examples of how this works. And so I kind of started taking this framework specifically for how I script in script writing. Now, the way I do script writing, not for these videos, these are off the cuff, if you could probably tell. I actually take these script writing a very interesting way because it's different than what is normally done for a lot of other channels, especially ones like these where you're kind of just giving business advice. It's different. I had to clip out stuff. And so it makes it interesting where the scripting is very precise. It has to be in a certain way. And so I took this approach with this. I'm like, ideally, I want to have this AI be able to, I want to be able to have a file or a couple files I could plug in into AI and it can instantly work. It can understand everything. It can take the stuff I filled and then push out a result that just works every single time. And so that's the framework that came with this or went into this. And so that's the same framework that I first also recommend. Once you understand that, okay, first I want to understand, I want to kind of come from this from understanding that this is like a dumb employee. What do I need to give? What do I need to go into that? And so I'll get that in a second. But when you understand that, and when you pair this with, I want to be able to have this and plug this in and instantly kind of just understand exactly what it's done, and you marry these two together, you're going to have amazing results. So first things first is, okay, what do I need to provide this AI to get to work? The first things is, what are kind of like the extreme cases? I call these kind of edge cases. I think that's more of a coder term or network term. I don't know. I can't remember. I used to take computer science regardless. What are the edge cases? And I'll give an example of this. For example, what are like the worst cases you could have? So then you kind of have a boundary of where are the kind of like two ends of the spectrum, so that anything that falls in between this, the AI should be able to handle it. Now, obviously, you're going to give more examples, but for example, let's just say I was kind of working with my script writing one, and I had to take clips from content. Like, it's an hour-long to 2-hour-long content that is recorded weekly, and I kind of make trailers, if you will. Trailers like 5 to maybe 10 minutes. I say trailers are kind of like clips, however. Now, I like to do a little bit of kind of stories with this. So I give it one extreme example of, hey, I'm going to give you a clip that is dry, doesn't have tons of content, and I want to have you try to pull stuff out of that. Okay. So I'll go do that. It'll feed me back the results. And then I'll also train this on the best case scenario. Okay, what if I give you tons of clips? Now I want you to try and work with that and see kind of what you get. And so when you set up these two extreme cases, and then you also feed it kind of some other different angles, different scenarios, you start to get a whole picture. That's what you really want to give. And that's the same case with when you're working with employees. When you give them kind of a structure that you have followed yourself, and when you make this structure and really set it together, there's a lot of times there's gaps in it because you're just not aware of it. And that's completely fine, but you got to be aware that they are probably going to come back and say, hey, what if I have this problem? And so you want to start to anticipate this a little bit more but when you go into this AI. And so I'm not saying you're going to have all the answers instantly when you do this, but what's going to happen is when you first do this and say, okay, it should be producing the results hypothetically. Well, hypothetically, there's probably some gaps in your thinking and your cases and the scenarios you gave that it's causing it to not produce what you want. And there's more that goes into that, but I want to kind of take a step back with that. And so I had a train of thought going. It was going, but yeah, I think the main thing there is when you start to give these edge cases and say, hey, these are the things, and say, okay, report back what you got, and then report back what you got, and say, okay, now write this into a document that is completely right into a document that I can give to any other AI, and then it can instantly understand exactly the nuances, everything that we mentioned here, like you did. And so that's what you do. You do it and generate your thing, your document or whatever. You put that in and you start a new chat. And so the case you do here then is, okay, now I started a new chat. Now you test it. And so this is the beauty of it. You don't test it directly in the chat you just created beforehand to create these instructions. You want to try this out as if it's a new chat, because then you can see in real time how it's working. And this is the beauty of it, because once you are able to do this, once you're able to say, hey, okay, I got this 2-hour long video, I want you to pull out specific kind of story arcs with this, or specific clips or moments that are valuable, that are absolutely great. I want you to start doing that and see what you produce back. And then once it produces back, that's when you look at it and say, okay, I don't like this. I think these results should be different here. I think you should have this, that, and this. Completely remove this. And then you say, okay, does that make sense? Whatever. And it's like, okay, yeah, that makes sense. And or you say, compare that to my results. I think that's a big thing I was going towards earlier, is what you want to do with this as well. Actually, I'll put that as like a side point in a second. But when you start to say, when you have like a fresh response, and then you say, okay, I expected these results, what do I need to add to your instructions to make sure that we get this instantly every single time without giving you any additional context? And then it'll spit out more things for you to more things to add. And so then you try it again. Now, there are a couple things that you need to be aware with, and a couple things that can help kind of alleviate and kind of speed up this process. Number one is using the keyword or using the key phrase devil's advocate. Completely great. What you do is say, okay, so I have these responses. I want you to include this into your instructions that I give you at the beginning of every time, so it can give you the context. And so then that's where I say, but play devil's advocate with me. What's the best move here? Should we add it to the file? Should we add it to that file? Should we have it as a separate file of an add-on of additional instructions that support the main file? Or should I have a separate file for just examples of how I want the output? When you start adding play devil's advocate, it looks from all different angles that you're not looking at, and actually starts to think a lot more critically, which is absolutely amazing. It's no more as much as that BS response, like, oh, I think this is great. No. So that's the number one. Number two is do it if you want to continue on with the same chat. This is what I would do. This is actually works amazing as well. So this is kind of like the timeline I would follow in terms of getting it really solid. I mentioned starting a new chat and seeing how the fresh responses work with your file. I'd say that's the end. The first kind of road, the first piece you want to start with is hooking up all the information, and give it a base to follow up with. Once you have that, that's when you say, okay, I want you to do this thing, and I'm going to give you examples of this. I'm going to give you the necessary kind of like information you need to first use. I want you to produce the result, and then I'll compare it to my result. You have to actually have the result ready to go. So what I mean by this, let me give you an example, because it might be a little kind of high level for this. What you want to do is, for example, if I'm kind of scripting and I have my set ways of how I script and how I ideate and how I pull stuff, what I'll do is say, okay, we have our base file. I have my chat where I was working and generating my base file and of instructions. Let me give you examples to work with. I already gave you kind of like the end cases, but I want to give you more examples so you have more of an in-depth understanding, knowledge, and context around it. So I'm going to give you the base information. So I'm going to give you the transcript of the entire 2 hour video. And I want you to generate for me your scripts based on what you have gathered so far from what we've done. I want you to generate your own scripts, and then after you generate them, then I'll give you my list that I have compiled, and I want you to compare and see what you did versus mine and what you need to improve. And so when you do this, when you have it generate its own, and then you correct it with yours, you given that natural feedback loop, that just like a human brain, just like an employee would use, it makes it so much faster. So once you start doing that, and once you start feeling really confident, you're like, okay, I give you a lot of examples. I want you to generate a final version of this file. Maybe you have some additional add-on files to not dilute it, whatever it may be. Once you have all these things together, then you're in the final phase of going to testing with a new conversation and seeing how it does. And then that's when you start to fine tune the stuff. And that's may be, then you add additional stuff like examples, like an example file of just befores and afters and expected outputs. And so when you even have in this as well parameters or really requirements for expected outputs, it's absolutely going to change everything you're doing. And that leads me into the last one, which is number 3, which is having having a confidence score. I forget where I saw it. I know it was on X, but they're saying there was like a study done where I think it was some accredited, it might have been Google, it might have been some big, I don't know, it was a study done, and they said the best way to get AI to not hallucinate on you, one of the key ways, and by the way, if you don't know what hallucinate is, it's giving you fake results or giving you results just like the first time the results it gives you is actually not true. So for example, I could say, hey, I think the sun is blue, and it's like, oh yeah, according to some, like, yeah, that seems right. It's probably because the ozone and whatever it may be, or like there's some like lens on whatever you want, whatever. Whatever. That's like hallucinating. And that's like until I correct it, I'm like, oh, actually no, I was kidding with you. It's actually yellow. And it's like, oh yeah, you're right. No, haha. Yeah, I knew you were joking. And it was like, oh yeah, okay. That's hallucinating. And so that's where a confidence score really comes into play. And how do you implement this? What even is a confidence score? Well, you can put it on a scale of whatever may want to do. I put it on a scale of 0 to 1. And so you say, okay, I want you, when you generate your report, when you generate what you do, I want you to go back and look and analyze what you created. And then I want you to put on a scale of 0 to 1 a confidence score of how similar it is to the results I have outlined and to previous results. And then what you say is, and if it's not above a certain score, they did 0.8 in the study, I do 0.95 because I want to be very hyper specific in how it's done. If it's not above 0.9 or 0.95, then I want you to go through it and tell me why you're not confident in certain these specific areas. and either regenerate it. Now, some AIs won't regenerate, or tell me your why exactly, and then give me reasons or suggestions to help you. And so at that point, when you get all this, when you have all this information, now you're building something that's not really an AI, but more of an agent, more something that works for you, that's thinking for you, that's playing devil's advocate for you, that has given the entire kind of understanding, and you're giving it the necessary tools to succeed, just like a dumb employee. That was a rant for sure, but hopefully that makes sense. I hope you enjoy it. Something that just came off my mind today, and keep learning AI for sure, because I get in these phases where I use it, I stop using it, I use it, I'm like, this is amazing, I stop using it, I'm like, man, like AI is not good as it is, but it's only going to improve. And if you realize that it's only going to get better, why not just adapt it? Why not just try to plug in everything that's repetitive for you? It's going to get to the point where it's your second kind of, it's like an advisor for you. It's like your second brain that you can consult with, saying, hey, look, I have this idea. What are your thoughts on this? Play devil's advocate. Use that all the time. To play devil's advocate, and it's going to work wonders. So that's my video for today. Hope you like it. Thanks.